Hi there, this is Solitary Ronin from Solitary Ronin Films, and welcome to part 15 of my Joseph Losey season. Today we're going to 1964 and King and Country, starring Dirk Bogarde, Tom Courtney, Leo McKern, James Villiers, and lots of other familiar faces. I have done a random review of this film previously on the channel, but that was on the DVD copy. This is a multi-region Blu-ray that I picked up that I would highly recommend, because certainly the DVD that I had, the print's not very good, not very sharp, and the high definition really makes the cinematography stand out, and the lighting, and Losey's compositional choices. It's one of Losey's most beautiful films, even though it's a horrible film, and up to this point I think it might actually be my favourite Losey. I mean, I know that's controversial because I've just done The Servant in the last episode, but I think I actually prefer this to The Servant, even though obviously The Servant is most people's choice of perhaps Losey's best film, but I think personally this one's a little bit better. Again, that's just my personal choice. And this is one of the few films up to this point that Losey doesn't complain about, or didn't complain about too much. He just complained about the fact that it lost money, apparently. Again, another small budget, £86,000. Granted, £86,000 in 1964 was somewhat more than it is nowadays. And Joseph Losey apparently got about £5,000 as director. This is based on a play called Hamp, which is Tom Courtney's character, and it's about a soldier who is on trial for desertion in the British Army during World War One. Dirk Bogarde obviously made a few films with Losey. I think this one's probably his most personal, as his father was in the Somme and Passchendaele, and obviously had lots of trauma when he came back, because that was just a living hell. And Losey, because of restrictions of budget, this is all studio bound, which really adds to the atmosphere of claustrophobia. Yes, it's perhaps, you could argue, stagey because it's based on a stage play, but it's opened up enough. Losey uses still photography, really powerful dissolves from like a body in the mud slowly dissolving to nothing, transitions from skeletons lying in the mud to Tom Courtney's character, for example, images of dead horses. The film opens with a wonderful tracking shot around a war memorial with the words "a royal fellowship of death," which is basically what the film's about. As I say, he uses stock footage, still photography. There's a couple of really interesting uses of POV camera work, including one, well, obviously puts the audience in both those situations, one which is a little humorous and one that is quite moving but divisive depending on your view of capital punishment, I guess. This is a bleak film, as I say. It's beautifully composed from a framing and cinematography standpoint, but also the images and what it's about is obviously horrible. Not that other wars aren't horrible, obviously, but World War One was basically just a slaughterhouse. So we're pretty much just dropped in it. Tom Courtney is already in a makeshift prison in the trenches. They've literally just put a bed instead, as bars, which is a comment in itself, because he essentially just started walking away from the guns, and he pretty much said he just wanted to walk home to England, which technically isn't actually possible because there's the English Channel in between France and England, strangely enough. And Dirk Bogarde is the prisoner's friend, as they call it in the army. He's the guy who's supposed to defend him. It's an interesting role for Bogarde, as unlike other war films that feature kind of lawyers trying to stand up to the faceless authoritarian officers and the regime and the war machine, Bogarde isn't shown as a paragon of virtue. He is just doing his duty, and as he tells Courtney, don't thank me for doing my duty. If you did your duty, we wouldn't be going through this. So he has kind of anger at both sides. So again, he's not this perfect character. We have a nice kind of device of not quite a Greek chorus in the classic sense, but a kind of Greek chorus of the other privates, in the mess, the cooks and stuff like that. They at one point they do their own kangaroo court on a rat that is accused of biting one of them in the ear. And they're kind of there for not necessarily comic relief, but perhaps gallows humour. Amongst all of this, Courtney gives a good little performance as somebody who comes across as being a little naive, perhaps not the brightest bulb in the book. He thinks the worst that can happen is he spends some time in military prison because it's the first time he's deserted or been accused of desertion. Obviously that doesn't work out, spoiler alert, because this film is really bleak. Even the ending goes an extra step of bleakness. Maybe that's why I like it so much. But the atmosphere, the claustrophobia, the beautiful compositions, as I say, the lighting, the constant rain and the mud. I mean, it was pretty much shot in a studio, and all the actors were soaked and weren't very pleased about it, but it really gives again that atmosphere of oppression and being trapped. There's descriptions of men drowning in mud, basically, and we get to see fairly horrific things like the grunts, as somebody in Aliens might say. They beat a dead horse, literally, and of course rats start coming out of it. There is disturbing imagery, there is some strong meat, but it's just really well done. And like a lot of Losey films, it's more about class between officers and the ordinary soldiers, the front lines. The officers drink wine, the other guys have to drink kind of handmade alcohol out of big jars. There's a wonderful scene where the officer who is the padre essentially goes to Courtney to help to take confession and admonishing him of his sins. And Courtney has been drinking with the lads on the last night, and after he's had the body of Christ and the blood of Christ, he vomits. I don't know whether that's Losey commenting on organised religion. I'm not quite sure. The script was written by Evan Jones, who I believe Losey has worked with before, based on a play, as I said. It's just a wonderful little film, but again, if you are going to watch it, please try and get a high definition print rather than some not very good DVD prints. Interestingly enough, on the opening titles it does say it's a Janus production with the recognisable Criterion Janus coins. So I don't know whether this would ever make it to Criterion, but it probably should because it's absolutely marvellous. It's Losey's last black and white film. Don't let the cover fool you. It is black and white, but the cinematography absolutely pops. And again, the use of light. Bogarde is slightly lit differently than other people, which is interesting. And again, you do get a feeling this is more of a personal film for Bogarde because of his dad. And he is a more complex character. You know, he talks back to officers obviously in private, and he's just kind of said, oh, you're taking that too far. But obviously if the ordinary frontline soldiers talk back to officers, there would be more dire consequences. And the officer who actually makes the decision or hands in the verdict, you know, has the line of, you know, this isn't about the facts, which is always what you want to see in a trial. It's just wonderfully done. It's less than an hour and a half. It doesn't hang about. As I said, there's no preamble. We don't see Courtney actually deserting. Again, that's probably due to the fact that it's based in a play, so you're just dropped right in it, which works really well. And like I say, it's a film that I would highly recommend, but just try and get a Blu-ray or a high definition print if you can, because it will double your pleasure. So thanks very much for watching part 15 of Joseph Losey, and very much like Joseph Losey's career, the next film up in part 16 is something completely different. So once again, thanks very much for watching. Please let me know if you've seen King and Country and what you think of it, and hopefully you'll join me again for the next episode in Joseph Losey. This is Solitary Ronan from Solitary Ronan Films, saying farewell.